In one of the videos, I'm even pretending to play violin because the real violinist couldn't come. So it's actually not me on the recording. That's some fun tip that you can leak somewhere. Journal kind of story that's inspired the writer of Lord of the Rings, and it's inspired so many modern day kind of fantasy books and writers. So Singing Revolution, it's a Europop inspired musical with Europop score, and I think it's a very energizing music created for this market here to tell a historic, inspired by historic events, a story that talks about keeping your culture alive despite the oppressive regime that Soviet Union regime was. It highlights the family values that I think so many Estonians keep to their heart. That culture isn't something that needs to, even if you're not allowed to wave your flag proudly, culture lives on within your family and within your heart, and it's the folklore songs, or it's certain traditions, certain sayings, and I think that's really what the music go encapsulates really nicely.
Aloha, my beautiful friends on the other side of the screen or earplugs. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Krista Ralaxmi-Dettan, coming to you from San Diego, California. And I call myself New Time Coach. I believe that each one of us has a treasure box inside, and once we open it, we can fully start to manifest our inner fairy tales into the dreams in this world on our terms. And welcome to this week's episode, which will be a follow-up episode with Valev Laube. And if you didn't listen to the first one or watch the first one, there will be a connected link in the notes here, so you can find it and go back. Or you can go to Podbean and scroll back until you find the previous episode. Enjoy this episode. It will be so much fun. And as always, like, share, review, and download. Mahalo. So now let's dive a little deeper into the business world and entrepreneurship. And I kind of like the way you almost like introduced the topic, saying as an entrepreneur, you have to take care and also be on that top post notch energy all the time and figure out like, okay, what's next? So you have things rolling all the time. I would like to ask about 3 different projects, and then we will go into some tips and tools also, which we discovered prior to this meeting, which will be very exciting. So hang on. So first one is the Estonian Culture Days. I just heard once you and you had you had like really amazing team of people there. And you guys, it almost felt like you reawakened. This tradition has been long. It's like 48 or 9, or I think around 50 years old now. And you guys came on board and reawakened that. And I could see in social media, like what you guys did, like all the videos and promotion and so on. How was this for you? How were you brought into this? And what did these experiences give to you? What did you learn about yourself and your craft?
Yeah, it was a fun project, I would say. It was at the same time when I was here in New York working for a design company, and when I worked for clients such as you mentioned, Steve Madden and Kenneth Cole, and we even did some, I mean, now I can kind of say it, but we did some concept things for Starbucks, and it was a very, very different, even compared to now what I do. It was a very traditional kind of graphic design job where you just, you get various client projects and you try to do your best and put together this big portfolio for each client and hope that, they get picked. And it's really cool to see afterwards, of course, if some of those designs get printed and you see people, you walk around the city and you see people kind of either wearing them or you see it on billboards. So that's kind of where I was at the time, doing a very kind of normal designer work job. And then I was approached by a friend of a friend, actually. Again, our mutual friend Dina, and then Katri Nopritsson, she just came from Estonia, I think, at the time, and her and her husband, they lived in New York at the time, and she was, as somebody who just came here, she obviously first went to the Estonian house, and then she learned about this old tradition and the house, and everything that's they're associated with the Estonian community here in New York. And then she wanted to kind of resurrect this old festival tradition, I think. So she was the one who had all the big plans. I was just the person who kind of made it hopefully pretty and made it accessible for people. So that was kind of my role in there, just to bring more awareness to this to the festival at the time, and to do all the graphics and social media, and figure out, kind of digitize the whole tradition, make the tickets or the donations available online so that people could donate and find information and create these communication channels. So it was really I would say it was one of the first like big projects where I did everything that now I provide under my own company. So it was maybe like an early case study practice round.
And you
And
even
yeah,
had
that was
and you even
that
had
was
like the Seto group
mhm.
performing there, and my grandfather is actually from that area, so I was like, it was so exotic to see them dancing on the streets of New York.
Yes, yes, and that was, again, you see, like, that was the fun part, because when I studied violin, I mean, my sister is a folk musician, so I have, again, that connection there, that we would go to various dance events and learn about the Seto culture, which is kind of like a subculture of Estonia, and they have their own dialect and amazing, specific clothing, and so much, almost not completely different culture, but it's kind of culture on its own within already a small country. So the Estonian Cultural Days, yeah, that was interesting, and the way that I got involved initially was that Kadri got to know on YouTube, I believe, that I play violin, and that year, the first year of 2016, they didn't really have anything kind of folksy and fun. So they had a couple of lectures and, a really great program. I don't even remember if they had a main performer at the time yet for that year. And she came to me and she was like, do you want to play violin? Because I saw your videos. And I'm like, well, I don't know any guitarists here, and I haven't really been performing much, and all that stuff. And then I was like, okay, well, let's try to put together something. So at the end, it ended up being the same. Well, I collaborated with a viola player who we did a concert at the National Gallery a few years after that, but in DC, and it turned into a really great collaboration. And then Katri and I, we had become such good friends, and occasionally have, like, a glass of wine after work, and I'm stressed out about my work. so then I would talk about that, and she was stressed out about the cultural days and getting, things figured out. And then I just kind of wanted to help her a little bit with social media, and then it grew into a role where, I ended up kind of doing the website and visuals, and the following year all the digital kind of donation systems and emailing and promotion and reach out and all that stuff. So it kind of, again, it grew. Like, it wasn't that there was a job application, because the whole
Mhm.
festival was, zero budget, and Qatari did an amazing job pulling in all the grants and things to get performers to come here to New York. And then following years, we would consult a little bit with each other, like, oh, who could be fun performers? And the last third year, what was that? 2018. Yeah, that's when she told me that, hey, there's this set of singers, and there's even some Estonian, like, theater actresses who are part of that singing group. So we could
Mhm.
kind of do like two in one. So they could come and
Yeah.
perform, and then maybe we could also then get the theater to come here and do like a theater drama performance. So we don't have to, essentially, pay that many people to come. There's some overlap. And then I was like, yeah, that's amazing idea. And we got the Seto singers, and then we turned it into a whole kind of music video type of project. So we went to Brooklyn and, recorded them, and we brought along some contemporary dancers here from New York who then choreographed. Dina, our good friend, right? So she choreographed a contemporary dance piece, which was inspired by traditional dance. So it was a really fun kind of
co-creation.
Estonia, like existing far away and yet still, inspiring the cultural roots, inspiring contemporary, creativity mixed with something that is so kind of sacred and traditional now brought to New York. So it was a really, really cool dynamic. And the way they kind of harmonized and the energies. I mean, they were awesome. Like they had brought their traditional kind of drinks, which are always homemade, again, old tradition, right? And we were there, and it was cold, and sometimes the women, they were like, "Oh, let's have a little drink, let's do a break in the little drink of our traditional, drink," and it was just so much fun. Such a cool, same culture, but kind of diversity or variety within a single culture.
Yeah. And what's really cool about it, I don't know if you know it, but Anne Veesaar, who was one of the actresses, is actually somehow related to me through my grandmother.
I had no idea.
So that was so cool. I saw all the posts because she's my friend on Facebook, so I saw her post in New York too.
Yeah, and eventually I took out my violin. I mean, we knew that was going to be our last year organizing because Katri went back to Estonia. And I was here, but I felt like I had to move on and started working on my company and stuff. So we knew that was going to be our final year. So it kind of came full circle because during like the after party, or we had like a jam session event organized where like I brought my violin, the Seto singers, they would sing and dance and teach dances. And then they had an instrumentalist obviously as well. Then we had an Estonian drummer here. Like then we just like jammed that night all together. So full circle from the first year of performing to last year just jamming with all other traditional folk musicians.
Yeah,
fun,
very cool.
Fun memories.
And it's such a beautiful example, again, abundance in action, when group of people come together and you have brainstorming and one person's skills and talents are, weaved together with another one, like beautiful things happen. And this is one thing which I feel us as Estonians, when I was back in Estonia, it was so hard sometimes to do that collaboration thing. And as I've been outside, it's much easier. Doesn't matter with whom. And that I think is also connected to our cultural wound that, we were just overridden by so many countries, so many years, that it's just that carefulness there. But I'm just so delighted to hear your story
are
about
humble. I mean, we're just humble people, and culturally it's not very celebrated to brag about kind of yourself or what you do. So I think Estonians in Estonia, they don't, they really, function this way, which is totally fine. And I think it's a very healthy environment to be in. While, here in the United States, if you want to create like a cultural festival or make that video performance stand out, you have to kind of brag a little bit. It's again introducing one culture in another culture's context, which it comes with its own challenges. Yeah.
So now also another amazing project which you were part of was the Kalevala project, which was brought to Broadway, right?
So it's not brought to Broadway. It's again an upcoming Broadway production. So so when it comes to like the VL Studios, it's again fun that I get to work on multiple kind of creative productions, such as Kalevala, and there's the Singing Revolution musical and the In Proximity Theater Company. So that I always get like a good mixture of different clients, because then I also have clients who are there's an investment firm, wealth management company, and law firm. So it's a fun mix to be working on something that's so creative and new, that's really upcoming, almost like grassroots kind of movement, um, and balance these two things. But yeah, Kalevala is an upcoming Broadway production. So currently nothing happens because nothing happens, and I don't know exactly, what are the kind of business details. But I got involved there when I already had kind of established myself as a freelancer. So then I was contacted to do their website, and now at this point, really what we've done is we launched two different, a music video and then like a full-on introductory video which I directed, and then I've been involved in some of the productions of some of these music tracks. In one of the videos, I'm even pretending to play violin because the real violinist couldn't come. So it's actually not me on the recording. That's some fun tip that you can leak somewhere. But it's not me on the recording actually. But they just needed a violinist to kind of be there in the video. So I brought my violin, and there's my hand. So and then I ended up directing those, and we did. We did, I think, what was it, 3 or 4 different like reading events. So there was right before the lockdown, we did an industry. So the industry works in a funny way. We could do a whole other podcast about this, but the last one was an official, equity reading, with actual equity actors and producers, and they come and listen to the piece and to the, to the story, and to get a sense of the book, and then to potentially sign either the production or invest. So that's kind of where they are at the moment. And yeah, so it was again a fun collaboration because it's such an eternal kind of story, that's inspired the writer of Lord of the Rings, and it's inspired so many modern day kind of fantasy books and writers. Yet, at least American audiences don't know much about Kalevala. And it is really the, northern mythological, again, treasure that's maybe not very well known directly, but indirectly very familiar, I think, to American audiences.
Yeah. And also one big wave or ripple was actually created also by the Broadway director Tony Spinoza, who is now bringing to life the new musical about the singing revolution. And it has been actually called Peaceful Resistance Piece. Yeah. So can you say some words about that? Like, what's your part in that? And I saw some videos and people talking about it. It sounds like very exciting. I also saw some choreography about it. And of course, it's very different what we Estonians would kind of imagine. But I think it's an amazing way to introduce our culture and our story and history to the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, of course, and I'm not going to speak on behalf of Tony, obviously, but because my involvement is again as a brand manager, so all the visuals that you kind of see, my task initially when I was contacted by Tony, and we've again known each other for some time, actually through the Estonian Cultural Days. I think that's where we first met. So my initial task was to listen to the music and figure out what could be the brand and the visual representation of this production and how to bring it to American audiences. And then, of course, the web design that went with it, and then the social media. And then together we came up with the initial social media strategy and plan to publicly start, creating momentum and community around it. Because with many Broadway productions, I mean, I know firsthand secondhand from my clients, I know that there's productions that take 10 years, and there's productions that take 4 years, and there's productions that get made in 6 months, and all of these they have very different stories. But in almost any case, it's important to have that online community already, just because, like with any other business, having the following and having the passion behind it is a value. and especially in entertainment world. So being able to prove that. So that's kind of how I got involved. So Singing Revolution, yeah, it's a Europop inspired musical with Europop score, and I think it's a very energizing music created for this market here to tell a historic, inspired by historic events, a story that talks about keeping your culture alive despite the oppressive regime that the Soviet Union regime was. Keeping it alive. There's if you, I think, I don't want to say too much because I can't, but I think if you read the script on the website, you'll see that the story is really, it highlights the family values that I think so many Estonians keep to their heart. That culture isn't something that needs to, even if you're not allowed to wave your flag proudly, culture lives on within your family and within your heart, and it's the folklore songs, or it's certain traditions, certain sayings, and I think that's really what the musical encapsulates really nicely. And of course, it has all the historic major events that took place in the late 80s and early 90s in Estonia, such as the Toompea tower kind of protection, where really young adults, they will go and protect the tower, and for the first time when they switched out the flag from the Soviet flag to Estonian one, such a major event. Or the Night Song Festival, when tens of thousands of people gathered and started singing these songs of national importance, sometimes without even any conductor, just because these are songs that have been passed down, and there were also a lot of new songs by Aloha and many other Estonian composers at the time. But I think the story is amazing, and especially taking the current times and what's happening in the US and what's happening around the world. Right, there's a lot of unease in political spectrum. Telling a story that says that doesn't matter where you align politically, the culture lives on, and it lives in your heart. And I think that's also what brought Estonians together. And that's really, I think, where all of us, doesn't matter where we come from, where we should find the sense of unity, that it's really the culture. It's not the color of your skin or the political views, but it's about respect. It's about the core values, the human values that we all have. So I really look forward to it. At the moment, it's the world premiere is currently scheduled for spring 2021. Let's hope that things stay okay, that we manage to beat this virus. But currently it's scheduled for spring 2021 in LA. And then after that, we'll see then when we can bring it to New York, or when they or potentially do a national tour. It's really, we'll take it from there. But at the moment, yeah, it's by the time this podcast goes live, the new music video should be out, which is also half Estonian and half English. And the Estonian verse actually, the name is "Never Forget Who You Are," and the Estonian verse really reveals what are the core values that this character is there singing about. So yeah, check it out. There's also the first single that was released, I think, a year ago now, with Neil Haskell, who's actually a Broadway performer, has been in multiple Broadway shows here, including like Hamilton, and Hamilton he's currently at. But check it out. And then he was also at So You Think You Can Dance. He was one of the, I think, top 4 finalists there. So really a great performer and kind of well-known performer here. And it was so great to have him in the studio and collaborate and record this kind of in studio music video type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds very exciting, and thank you so much to go so deep, like also culturally, and all of those, like what's the meaning of it on a deeper scale, which is so dear to my heart, as an Estonian living outside, but also in general, I think each one of us, doesn't matter where we come from, we need to, connect to those core values and keep intact, because that's one thing which will keep us going in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think that's why, Tony has done an excellent job kind of packaging this unique story in a way that people who haven't been to Estonia, they could still relate to and learn from. Because there's so many cultural things that, to us Europeans, I'm sure when you moved to the US, you were at first like, oh, I don't understand why they're doing this or why they're saying this. There's so many things that are so deeply rooted in culture that it's you cannot teach anybody a culture within 2 or 3 hours of a Broadway show. So he's done really a great job of making the story accessible and understandable, so that I think if when you see it, you'll be able to take away something, and you'll be able to understand why Estonians at the time did what they did, and how how it came together peacefully, exactly like protesting without a shed of blood left behind. So it's obviously it's only one side. There's also a lot of other Estonians who did a bunch of other things, but it really showcases how us as regular people who are not politicians, who are not soldiers or whatever, that we can still do so much to raise our voices and showcase unity and showcase resistance through music and through culture.
Yeah, so beautiful. Thank you so much. That's just like, I feel like fed
Yeah.
as a social anthropologist. So thank you so much. And to wrap it up, you have actually offered a really cool part, which is we take it to another level, like kind of like a mini course with Valev here. So what would be those first steps if you, as a small business owner, would like to take your business now into the digital world? And we thought it through. We actually tested it also, and we will also share some things here on the screen. So later, once you have heard the audio version of the podcast, you can also check out the video version, and then you can also see in detail what Valev is actually teaching and what he means with it. So, so what do you think would be those first steps? You have now had major experiences during the epidemic here with people and their businesses, and you have some really good pointers.
Yeah. So first of all, well, yeah. So when it comes to me and my company, what we do now, the VL Studio, yeah, as you said, it's a New York-based branding, creative design, and marketing company. So one of the most recent things that I introduced as one of our services is consultation. So it's a brand consultation, and as part of this podcast, we're glad to offer also a complimentary consultation for anybody listening. Usually now during the pandemic months, we're doing a 20-minute complimentary consultation. You can just go to the website, thevlstudios.com, and get it under services, and there's a button that says schedule consultation. So that is currently free, I think, until next year, so during the pandemic. But to anybody listening, we're actually happy to offer a little bit longer session, so maybe 45 minutes, or maybe if it's conducive and productive, maybe even an hour consultation to anybody who needs some help or has some questions. So as part of the consultation, listeners can come in with particular questions about either their branding, their current web presence. We can take a look at the website and see how you could improve it on your own, or obviously I'm here to help. But there's also many small things that you can do. So one of the first things when it comes to web design that I always want people to think about it is first of all, think about four different categories. Where does your inbound traffic come from? So how are you bringing people into your website? Because as a web designer, I'm very realistic, and I do also marketing, and I tell people very directly that you can have the prettiest website on earth, And if nobody visits it, you're not making an impact. So where does your traffic come from? What are those channels? And what are the first contact points to your brand or company? So when we look at today, restaurants, for example, their first point of contact might be their Yelp page or maybe their Google Maps presence. It might not even be Instagram or Facebook. So in that case, those are the highest priority to get figured out, so that once the visitor gets to the website, the experience continues. Your experience doesn't begin with the website. The experience begins with a link, with an email, with Google for Business presence or Google Maps presence or Yelp presence. So first of all, think about your inbound traffic. Where are they coming from? What are the platforms? Where does your community exist? So if you have a professional services type of business, I even suggest sometimes reaching out to Yahoo Answers or Quora pages and becoming a thought leader in those communities that are already there. You just have to reach out and become a part of it and become a leader and then direct them to you. So that's the inbound traffic, and there's so much more to talk about this. Schedule a consultation, we'll go all in. The next step is outreach channels. So how are you now keeping your community interactive, happy, pleased, satisfied with kind of what you're offering here? So on social media, my little tip is the 80-20 rule. When you're doing your social media and you have a service that you're selling or a product you're selling, nobody will interact or feel, what's the right word? They feel gratitude for seeing your advertisements in their wall all the time. That's not what generates interactions. 80% of your content should be something authentic, genuine, relatable. Sometimes it means if you're a solo entrepreneur, sometimes it means, hey, I'm taking my dog for a walk at the moment and posting a photo. Or, I just came back from this event and this is what happened and I was so inspired, and you make a post about this. So something that is just from your everyday life. You can link it to some of your services, but don't make it salesy. It's just that people need to feel like you care about them, and it's a mutual transaction there. And then 20% you can throw in either advertisements or direct promotion of certain services, explaining and making it more clear what those services are. So an example of, for example, what I do sometimes is through my newsletters, I would send out month or every other month an email with all the tips and tricks. For example, right now I'm seeing, during the pandemic, restaurants, how could restaurants or hospitality industry improve their, interaction scores or increase their sales. And that means, really updating your Google for Business account. If you don't have one, sign up and put your COVID update information up there. And that applies to any business, really. Get your Yelp integrations, get your analytics integrations there. So I send out this sorts of information. And again, what I'm saying there is I'm not promoting, hey, this is what I do, but it's more about, hey, this is what you could do, or since I'm in the space and I've done it for so many years, and I continue to grow also on an everyday basis, I can help you with that as well. So it's really two-way street. You learn something and you tell me your story, and I learn something, or maybe we get into a business transaction. But always make your community feel cared. And then comes the third one, is experience. So what does your website look like? If now, and there's a really good practice, I mean, we can share the screen, but a really good practice of mine is go to your website and just zoom out. So zoom out of so in your web browser on Windows, Control and minus key, and then, or plus key for zooming in, right? Or you can go to the settings and zoom that way. But zoom out your website to about 50% and see what is left. So why is this exercise good? It's good for two different reasons. First of all, if somebody's scrolling through your website, they don't see everything. Imagine if you turn your head super quickly, you see a blur, you don't see everything in detail. And when somebody is skimming through your website content, what they're saying is they're seeing these headings, they're seeing just a paragraph, of text. They don't know what the text exactly is. And maybe then they see images or some other visual clues. So this is the website of the VL Studios. What you're seeing immediately is this huge header with big images and slides, and you see creative design and marketing boutique. Immediately know what the company does. You see some highlights of some of our clients, and then you see the client names and you see kind of what their industry is. But that's it, right? You don't really read any more information, and you have huge images. Another reason why this exercise is really good is when you build your website, and if somebody's now skimming through your website, scrolling through super quickly, you want to make them stop at some point. So what are these elements that make people stop scrolling? Again, something visually intriguing or a big heading. And my suggestion here is also, I see a lot of clients of mine who are, who post like a title as a title, saying like, oh, about us or our mission. And I say, no. Use the big heading bold text that is really the only visible text that you have. If you're scrolling through fast, you don't see paragraph text really well, or you don't read it. Use that big portion of your site to already start telling a story. And another client of mine is actually a good example of this, the Viking Beauty Secrets. So that's an organic skincare brand. And if we go to their website, immediately what we see within seconds, we know it's a certified organic skincare, products brand immediately. And then you can read more, and the, text below says, oh yeah, and it's from the lands of Northern Europe. And then you can go to the products. Call to action is right here. You scroll down, you immediately know it's Nordic perfection, right? And then you have the company definition. Viking beauty products are made using the ingredients. Then you scroll down, you immediately know that, oh, they're made out of antioxidant super berries, and you see what the berries are. So that's going to make you stop. Again, a regular person is not going to read exactly how are cloudberries is best for you, but some people see cloudberries and they love cloudberries, and they're like, well, what could cloudberries do to my skin, or what does it have? Like, why are you even using? And then they read, yeah, cloudberries have twice as many vitamin C than oranges, and loaded with vitamin E. And then he talks about omega-3 and omega-6 qualities. And then you see products. Again, products easily, you're going to stop and click. And again, here we have a heading that says all products are certified with EcoCert Cosmos organic certification. And that's really all you need to know. If you want to go more in depth, you're going to read about, okay, what does this particular ingredient, what does it do? But if you're not interested, you still get the grasp of it. And that's really the main point here. So zoom out. And another good tip of mine is an even better way of doing this is, for example, you can install like a screenshot plugin to your browser that lets you take a screenshot of your whole site. And then once it's taken, so it scrolls automatically your whole website. Once you have that image, again, either squint your eyes or zoom out and look at what's left. And this is really the rhythm that you're building with your own website. And when we look at this Viking Beauty Secrets here, you see that on top you're looking in the left side. Then a person who is text-oriented is going to continue reading on the left side. A person who's more visual, they're going to turn and look to the right. Then it goes to the center, and your eye will kind of scan through horizontally that section. And then the next one is again horizontal. So you have equal options of all the 4 products because they're equally, good or equivalent to each other. And your eye's already used to this kind of scanning motion. And then you're going back to the left. So this really would give you a good sense of, how to build a user experience that helps you tell a story and helps you guide your visitors through a certain story in your own terms. So use tips. Use every single heading opportunity you have because they're the largest part of your screen. Have visual content, create visual rhythm, check that rhythm by either zooming out or taking a full screenshot. And then, never think of this web experience as being in vacuum, because it is always a step 2 before something else. Either they're coming from their email, your email, in which case your email is already the first step to introduce your brand, or they're coming from your social media, which means your social media needs to harmonize with the web presence, or they're coming from elsewhere. But website is very rarely the first step. There's always something else before. And that's why in the beginning of the podcast, you mentioned holistic branding. That's kind of what I mean by this. It's making sure that every single first point of contact accelerates the motion of, I want to discover a brand, as opposed to, pushing you away. So it needs to accelerate and harmonize with the experience you're building in web. And then the last part, the fourth part, is obviously call to action. So then you have to figure out, okay, so what do I want the visitor to do? Is it to contact me? Is it to immediately, sign up to a consultation? And how to make that as easy as possible, and where, how the web experience leads to that call to action. So, that again depends on your business. Like in my case, like I told you, what we did this year is we introduced, these the consultations, and what we did immediately was we set up an automatic consultation kind of online booking portal, just because I know how annoying it is when you have to send a contact us email to get a consultation. So that was kind of our last step. Like, we're making this call to action more efficient, and people are going to sign up more if I'm not standing in their way. So that's really the last part, but the experience is what leads onto this. Yeah.
And you have you actually said that this really is working. Like you have weekly new clients coming on board because of that.
Yeah, they're coming on board because they don't, and when I created the company, one of the first things that I told to my co-founder at the time was, I don't want to create a web design company that's going to generate sites, that's just going to generate good looking sites, doesn't matter how good they look. I always wanted to be a little bit more involved in the story and make sure that I that I learn and I listen, and I get to know the business model that my client has, so that I could provide an experience and assist them and build this brand, or refine the brand in the online landscape, and make it build it in a way that supports their business model, as opposed to just coming up with nice sites. Because at the end, there will be a time, and there are already platforms that are computer intelligence generating you sites, and they're not bad. I mean, some of them look, design-wise, they look great, but do those platforms like know your business model, know your target audience, know the different marketing channels that you're using, and where they're the inbound traffic channels that you're using? Probably not. And that's exactly the issue that I want to address and help people with.
So it's a real personal, customized, experience.
Most of the time, it's a custom built experience. Like now, I'm working on a whole media portal, and what we talked about was how they're moving from print media to online web only media kind of business model. And they already have a website, but we talked very long about how to generate income and how to build a portal that would help also their current subscribers to adjust to this new form factor, because they already have a site and the information is there, and they could even do some advertisement placements and all stuff like this. But what they've seen is that their previous readers do not convert necessarily over, and people don't really, and some people even don't subscribe at all because they don't see much value. So how are we building a website that keeps people interested and coming back? And what we talked about even was, for example, article like release strategies, because before they would do weekly or bi-weekly papers, and they would just push out articles all at once. And I was like, let's talk about this, because if we're building a website that essentially thrives when people visit on a daily basis, then your current business model doesn't work with this. we can build a different website. We can build a website that kind of looks like a magazine, almost like these, I don't know if you know, but there are these like magazine apps, right, where you swipe through, and it's super nice user experience. But that wouldn't then help them generate more income or more subscribers. So I was like, well, let's talk about this and see, could we maybe release the articles online every day, like 2 or 3 articles, and we can schedule them, and we can also build integrations where immediately when an article is posted, an automated system will then generate a fully branded newsletter that automatically goes out to all subscribers. So, just making your life easier and understanding that not every company, especially when it comes to small and medium-sized companies, they don't have 100 people working on their social media, strategies. So how can we automate some of these tasks? And how can we make this experience a smooth transition, as opposed to just saying, well, the old print magazine or newspaper is gone, and now we have online, and you either switch over or you don't. And based on experience, the percentage of people who's going to switch over willingly it's going to be small, or relatively small, depends of the audience. And we want to push that to as high percentage as we can. So that's what I'm doing through the consultation, and then the brand building, which is really quote-based projects where you come in with a certain question, certain task, either it's web design, graphic design. That's a quote-based offering. And then the third part of the business is brand acceleration, where on a monthly basis we either manage your marketing channels, or we manage your advertising, or we optimize your advertising, or things like that. So those are kind of subscription package based. Then we have quote based work, and then consultations.
Yeah, really amazing. And I think what you touched here is very important, that in the chaos and transformation and transition where we are, and confusion, we are actually all obliged to look into our habits and behavior. Yeah. And when you look at, how people have been used to read newspapers or connect to the news the old way, and where it's going now, it's like you can resist, but this is where the world is going. So like this morning I had a little performance in Estonian TV, and we did it just through Skype. It's like I don't need to be there in physical presence. Of course it's nice, but we can do it this way. So
and also figuring out, another thing that I would say to that is not just adapting, but figuring out how we can eliminate the technical barrier, because I think that's the reason why a lot of people don't want to do Skypes, or they don't want to do Zoom, or they don't want to have a website, because they feel the technology takes so much work and effort that it takes away the kind of authenticity and genuine approach, and that's exactly my kind of what I love doing is figuring out how can we build these platforms and brands that encourage more real life interactions rather than discourage that, and how can we build a newspaper that is community driven and that makes you feel like you're still part of a local community subscription, as opposed to the last example, right, the media newspaper site, as opposed to them kind of dictating to you that, oh, you have to read, or this is what you're supposed to read. So I think it's something we're gonna see a lot of innovation in this area, of how technology can become a little bit less visible, and more intuitive, more genuine, authentic, direct. But yeah, until then, I mean, we got to work with what we have.
Yeah, and I think it also almost feels like it's turning into this on the energetic level, like the dance of the masculine and feminine, because companies and businesses which are just forcefully like saying to their users or fans, like, this is how you need to do it, they are not going to be successful. The ones, as you are now inviting them, like, okay, how can we do it differently? How can we do it softer? That's the feminine. And I think that's where also the world is probably heading to. So,
and there are different use cases. I mean, obviously you don't want your Chase Bank to be community run, or I mean, I honestly have a credit union account open, so I love that. But you don't want the website to feel like it's community run. So there are places where in certain industries where having that sort of rigid structure provides better experience because it communicates trust and authority, and and that's important. And then there are other businesses where it's the opposite, and that's why I said I don't like generating websites, because I want to get to know your business and the essence of it, so that I don't make something that's exactly like you said, that's masculine, but then you're providing, I don't know, therapy. And while therapy for men, I have actually a client of mine that's only for men. um, it's an interesting case study again, where it's like, well, the aesthetic needs to appeal to men, and it needs to have a certain level of, I don't know how to word this, maybe more masculinity, or like it needs to be a little bit authoritative. But then the
maybe
topics appeal, yeah,
appeal,
it needs to appeal. But then the buttons and the overall, the language there is so personal. So it needs to be a place where, when that man goes to that website, feels like, okay, it's something I can trust, and trust is very different for different people. And it's also different in different cultures, which is another big thing. But then still feel like, oh, it's a site where I'm going to contact, and I'm going to write in the contact box that, hey, I'm not feeling good. Because you're not going to open up if the site looks like it's, I don't know, Wells Fargo, and be like, hey, I'm going through this right now. So it's a really interesting kind of topic, and I love exploring those things, and making sure that, because user experience, that the experience is great for the industry, and that the aesthetic then provides the necessary kind of emotional response. And that's the other why the Zoom exercise is so nice, that do a big screenshot of your site, send it to your friend, and ask them, look at it for 10 seconds, and then take it away from far away, right, zoomed out, look at it for 10 seconds, take it away, and then ask, what would you feel if you saw a site like this? No, it's a great exercise, and it really tells you what the aesthetic translates. Because the experience, you don't see what the menu items are when it's so small, but just the aesthetic already like communicates so much to so many different people. So yeah, that's kind of what I do, and that's my passion. And if anybody wants to have a personal consultation, they can contact me. And yeah, after this podcast.
Thank you so much. It's like so exciting every time to communicate with you or do anything. So I'm so honored to have you in my circles. And now to wrap up, I have one more question. So imagine now we are maybe down the line, like 100 years later from this moment. So what would be the legacy you, Valev, would like to leave behind once you are done with this human temple of yours?
Oh Lordy, I don't know. That's not a question I got beforehand. That's funny. It's odd, because my work is so much behind the scenes, right? But then yet again, me as a persona, I tend to be quite out there, right? So like occasionally I would write an opinionated article or something, and that's, I think that's the weird thing about me, that I don't know exactly how to say. Well, is it the projects? I think it's the fact that I'm spreading this kind of belief that I personally hold very, dearly. And whatever work I do, I try to also make sure that it doesn't really do harm to humanity, kind of like that. I can proudly say that every single client that I have on an ongoing basis. I mean, there's always some other projects, right, that you're working on, because work is work, kind of. And obviously I'm not, through my work, I also don't dig into, I did this Indian corporate, client, did some designs for them. obviously I don't know anything about their specific business model and all that stuff, so that's not as intimate connection. But at least I really hope that the smaller clients that I sometimes work with, that I'm proud of kind of what they represent, and I'm excited about this, and then that people will find them and be kind of positively somehow impacted. Because I think so many people do great stuff. Like there's just so much great happening. It's just, not everything is for everybody, and not everybody's interested in everything, and that's totally fine. But we can all stay like respectful. So I don't know what that legacy would be. I think it's just the impact of various projects that I've done, or various things that I've done, and I hope that people. I hope it made an impact or contribution, because one person can change the world, but we all make a contribution through time. And I hope that whatever I've done has kind of, again, set in motion certain wheels, and that then somehow either, I've pushed them a little bit quicker and faster moving forward, or that somebody else keeps pushing them, just like set this kind of, motion going. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't really have very high expectations for that. just live your
Yeah.
life that you don't regret what you do, and I think that's good enough.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out like what words to use to wrap it really up, what Valev is about, and this little thing came up, so I'll share it with you, and then you'll confirm if that feels right and resonates. So it's basically like you are dealing with the art to build bridges between the digital and human existence, and then also teaching humans how to package that digital from the human into digital.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I do.
Yeah.
That's exactly creating these brand experiences, because a brand is never just a logo, it's never just a website, it's always an experience, and it's something that impacts people, and just building them in the digital world, and then hopefully making a difference through that in the real world, because they're becoming so intertwined anyway. So that's exactly what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
we will put all the additional links below the in this podcast in the notes. And if people want to reach out, they will have all the details how to do that with you. So
Absolutely, and let's see what we can put into that folder. Maybe we can also put some links for like search engine optimization, or whatever
like a
could
little
be
gift.
useful. Yeah, like a little gift, and they can always contact me. So thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun.
Thank you, and all the best with all your projects.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Yeah. And to all the listeners, I just remind you that to really support our podcast, please always remember to like, share, subscribe, and review. And of course, always let us know if there are some other things, how we could co-create or make things better. Thank you so much for your time, and see you soon, later, already next time. Mahalo.